Councillor Russell in the window, please.
Okay.
Councillor Russell, you are live.
Thank you very much, and good evening. Happy Monday, January 11th. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Northwest Community Council special meeting. This is a special meeting because we can't have an in-person meeting because of the restrictions around the virus, so we have this meeting instead. And so at this point, I would like to conduct an audio and a visual check with every member of council who is here. So let's start with Kathy Daigle-Gammon. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. Fully present and ready for our meeting.
Good stuff. Thank you very much. Councillor Lovelace.
Good evening, Mr. Chair. I too am here and ready for a great meeting. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Councillor Blackburn.
Good evening, everybody. Happy New Year and welcome. And we're all set and raring to go.
That's it. And Deputy Mayor Outfit.
Good evening, all here and ready to go as well. This is a good example.
Good stuff. Thank you. We also have a number of staff on the line. I don't know if we need to run through the staff or not. I don't believe we typically do that.
Maybe clerks and solicitor.
So the solicitor is Roxanne. Are you available? We have already heard from and seen the clerk.
Yes, good evening. I am available and standing by.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So the meeting has been called to order. That's item 1. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of December 14th, 2020. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes, please?
I so move. It's Lisa.
From Councillor Blackburn, and seconder, please.
Happy to second, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. And is there any discussion? Are there any errors or omissions on the minutes? Super. So can I have a call for the question, please?
Question?
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Excellent. Thank you very much. So the next item is the approval of the order of business and approval of additions and deletions. Over to the clerk. Are there any additions or deletions for the minutes? Or sorry, for the order of business?
No, Mr. Chair, there are no additions or deletions to the agenda.
Okay, thank you. And over to the committee. Are there any additions or deletions to the order of business? Super, thank you. So can I have a motion to approve the order of business, please?
I so move.
Thank you. And a seconder?
Second, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. And all in favor? Beautiful. All opposed? All opposed? Wonderful, thank you. Business arising out of the minutes seems to be none. Call for declaration of conflict of interest. Okay, motions of reconsideration is none. Motions of rescission is none. Consideration of deferred business is none. Notices of tabled matters is none. So now we move into public hearings. And the first public hearing this evening is case number 22865, rezoning application for PID 414-89048. And I think I'm handing this over to the clerk at this point.
No, Mr. Chair, you can give the introduction if you wish, please.
Okay. And so I guess we will proceed to the public hearing, and I'd like to thank you for joining us for the virtual public hearing. The order of events for this virtual hearing will be the same as a regular public hearing, where we start with a staff presentation, give the applicant an opportunity to present via telephone, and then we normally go through a public hearing speakers list. There are no registered speakers for this case. As a reminder to those watching from home, in order to have signed up as a speaker, the deadline was 4:30 p.m. on the business day prior to the hearing, so that would have been Friday. And these meetings are webcast, and so you can view the rest of the proceedings via the link on halifax.ca. And so, have we received any correspondence for this case?
Yes, Mr. Chair, there was one piece of correspondence received by the clerk's office, which has been circulated to the committee.
Okay, thank you. And now if we could please have the presentation.
All right, I can start here. So good evening, members of Community Council. My name is Brittany McLean. Just want to make sure everyone can hear me. I am the planner with HRM Urban Enabled Planning Applications team. So tonight I'm here with case 22865, which is a rezoning application for a property on Sackville Drive. So if I could, oh, hold on here. Why is my mouse not going over? There we go. If I could have Andrea switch to slide number 2 there, please. Okay, so WSP, on behalf of the property owner, is applying to rezone the lands known as PID 414890048. There's no civic address assigned to this lot yet. It's on Sackville Drive from the R6 rural residential zone to the R4 multiple unit dwelling zone of the Sackville land use bylaw. And so this rezoning is to enable the development of a multiple unit dwelling with 4 dwelling units. Please switch to slide number 3. Okay, so the property is located fronting Sackville Drive. The surrounding neighborhood is a mix of residential housing types, including single unit dwellings, there's 2 unit dwellings, and multiple unit dwellings, as well as a mix of commercial uses that include retail, restaurant, takeout restaurant, auto repair, and then a commercial greenhouse across the street. So I'll get the next slide there, slide number 4. So the site has an existing access on Sackville Drive. The neighboring single unit dwelling was recently subdivided from the property, the one that you see there in the photo. So it's not part of this rezoning application. And I'll switch to slide number 5, please. So the applicant is proposing to rezone the land shown fronting Sackville Drive from, as I mentioned, the R6 zone, which is the rural residential zone, to the R4 multiple unit dwelling zone of the Sackville land use bylaw. So the permitted uses in the R4 zone right now the permitted uses for the R4 zone that they're asking for include multiple unit dwellings in excess of 6 units, and then multiple unit dwellings containing no more than 6 units, and then also open space uses. So the applicant's proposing to rezone the site, they're shown in white, to allow for a 4-unit multi. So the proposed building that they've come forward with is designed as a 4-unit, 2-story townhouse style multi. So each unit has separate exterior entrances. They've shown here proposed 8 parking spaces. And the access there is actually proposed from an existing driveway that already is there. So Halifax Water confirmed through a subdivision process that 4 units is the maximum capacity for the site. So even though the zone would allow up to 6, the maximum based on the water capacity would be 4, which is why the applicant is showing 4 on their site plan. So I'll get you to switch to slide 6. Thank you. The property, as I mentioned, it's currently zoned R6 rural residential. And so that zone allows single unit dwellings. And I'll get you to switch to slide number 7. The property is designated urban residential, and that's under the Sackville Municipal Planning Strategy. So there is enabling policy UR7, and that enables council to consider amendments to the land use bylaw to permit multi-unit buildings up to 6 units with regard to the adequacy of separation distances from other low-density residential developments, and then the height, bulk, lot coverage, and appearance of any building being compatible with the adjacent land uses. Please go to slide number 8. Okay, so the applicable policies within the MPS speak to ensuring that new multiple unit dwellings maintain adequate separation distances from low density residential developments, and that they have heights and massing and lot coverages and also appearances that are compatible with adjacent land uses. So the R4 zone requirements are generally more restrictive than those of the R6 zone with respect to the front, rear, and side yard setbacks. So lot coverage in the R4 zone is marginally higher, and that's to rationalize building footprints for multi-unit buildings, which are generally larger than single-unit dwellings. However, height maximums are the same and building setback minimums are greater. So additionally, the R4 zone requires a minimum lot area of 6,000 square feet plus an additional 1,500 square feet per dwelling unit for each unit in excess of the first 3 units. So the zone requirements ensure that these adequate separation distances from adjacent developments are met, and that building mass and scale is appropriate and less impactful to neighboring properties. So the proposed multi is intended to be, like I said, a 4-unit, 2-story townhome style building with separate entrances and exits for each unit. Building heights would be no higher than 35 feet. The proposal depicts a lot coverage of 12.8%, and the setback provision for the zone would be met. So as such, the proposal results in amassing a lot coverage and a height that is consistent with the existing residential homes and surrounding buildings in the neighborhood. While doing that, it also demonstrates an adequate separation distance from those adjacent properties as well. So just wanted to note that although this application is for rezoning, it's just important to note that the controls on the site would be those of the Sackville land use bylaw zone provisions there in the chart. So the current development proposal could differ technically from what's ultimately developed, but as any of the development would have to meet the controls of that R4 zone there. Okay, so I'll ask you to go to slide number 9. So for public engagement, the level of engagement that we completed included a website. We had signage posted on the site, and we had a mail out mailed to property owners. We mailed 40 notifications, and then we had 86 individual viewers on the website over the past few months who spent an average of 2 minutes on the website. So for this case, we actually didn't receive any calls or emails from the public. I'll ask you to switch to slide number 10. So on July 15th, 2020, the Northwest Planning Advisory Committee recommended that the application be approved, and at that time, they did not have any considerations or concerns for staff. I'll ask you to go to the next slide, slide 11. So after all of our review, staff recommend that Northwest Community Council approve the amendment to the Sackville land use bylaw. And next slide is just a thank you. And Mr. Chair, if you want to call out if anyone has any questions for me, that would be great. Thank you.
Sure thing. Thank you very much for that presentation. Yeah, members of the committee, do you have any questions of clarification? I can't see anybody's hand waving, so if you could please enter it in the chat. Super, and I don't see anybody typing. So I would like to open the public hearing, and at this point I would like to invite the applicant to address the council, and I believe we have Jess Harper from WSP on the line.
I am here. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you very much.
Great. If someone could let me know when the presentation was up.
And we have it up
So
now. We are looking at. Yep, we are looking
Perfect.
at the front of 1633 Sackville Drive.
Perfect. I'm not watching the team, so that way I'm not delayed here. So great. So thank you very much, and just wanted to say good evening to the members of the Northwest Community Council and staff members, as well as any members of the public who might be listening here to tonight's meeting. As mentioned, my name is Jess Harper, and I'm a planner with WSP Canada Inc., and I am here tonight to present on behalf of the property owner, John Kaiser, for case number 22865 to rezone a portion of the lands at 1633 Sackville Drive from R6 rural residential to R4 multiple unit dwelling. Can I have slide 2, please? This slide illustrates the proposed concept site plan for the rezoning development at 1633 Sackville Drive. The proposal includes rezoning a portion of the site, as mentioned, from R6 to R4 to permit a multiple unit dwelling building. Now, as mentioned by Brittany, instead of a traditional multiple unit dwelling building, the property owner is proposing to develop a 4-unit townhouse style multiple unit that fits in with the surrounding neighborhood. Each townhouse unit is proposed to be 2 stories with their own separate entrances as well as outdoor amenity space. As part of this proposal, a final plan of subdivision was required to be registered for the new parcel prior to being approved, pending approval from the Community Council. And this has occurred and was approved in July-August timeframe of 2020. Now, it is important to note, I know Brittany's already mentioned it, that single family dwelling that's existing on the site will be maintained, which is now on its own separate lot, and that will be maintained under the existing R6 zoning. And now Brittany did briefly touch on this, but I just kind of wanted to give a little bit history here. So prior to going in for this rezoning application, the property owner did do a bit of background to get to this point to determine the additional 4 units. So what they did was in December 30th, 2019, a concept plan was approved. And the purpose of the concept plan was they wanted to determine what the as-of-right density on this lot was. And so through that process, which the plan was approved, it was determined that 5 residential lots could be developed as of right on this on 1633 Sackville Drive. So this is where the 4 additional units comes from. It's maintaining the existing single family home with 4 additional. Can I have slide 3, please? This slide just illustrates the surrounding zoning to the subject site. As illustrated here, established residential is within proximity to the subject site, consisting of mainly single and 2-story homes zoned R6 and R1. The proposed 4-unit townhouse style building would be consistent with the intent of the surrounding subdivision, as opposed to proposing a single building containing 4 units. And then just, if you'll notice, down approximately 85 meters west of the subject site, there is an existing R4 multiple unit dwelling zone there as well. Slide 4, please. This slide illustrates just a few examples of the existing homes within the neighborhood, taken from Google Street View, just pointing out that we are staying within the intent of the neighborhood, but with the single and 2-story dwelling homes. Slide 5, please. This slide illustrates just the neighborhood context that's surrounding the subject site. So a few things here to point out. The red is the whole subject site of 1633 Sackville Drive. You will see here on either side of Sackville Drive, the red lines indicate that bike lanes are present on both sides. The yellow circles indicate existing bus stops that are along Sackville Drive on either side that you can see are not directly in front of it, but fairly adjacent and close to allow any residents and rental users to have access to not only to have alternative transportation ways. Shown in blue, just east of the subject site, there's a small commercial complex here that does contain a pharmacy, Tim Hortons, a gas station, as well as a convenience store. As well as the subject site is well situated with its location to not only the transit routes, the bike lanes, but it's only an approximately 10-minute drive to further amenities along Sackville Drive. Slide 6, please. So I just briefly wanted to touch on the comments that we received during the rezoning applications from staff as well as at Northwest PAC. So during HRM's internal review, it was decided that the final subdivision application was required prior to proceeding to the public hearing stage. And so as mentioned, that approval has happened and registration of the lots. Now we have 2 lots there, and that occurred in the summer of 2020. When this application went before the PAC, the couple of comments that came up was there was question raised about what abuts a subject property. So to the east, we do have a C2 commercial zone. Existing residential is to the north and west, and Sackville Drive is located to the south. And as mentioned by Brittany as well, following the rezoning, the development will be required to meet the R4 zone requirements under the land use bylaw when it comes to the permitting stage. And now currently our proposal, we are exceeding the setback requirements that are required under the R4 zone. The other question that came up was why are we providing 8 parking spaces? So under the land use bylaw, the parking requirement for a multiple unit dwelling is 1.5 parking spaces per unit, which would make the required parking spaces for this development 6. Currently we're showing 8, and this is all subject, of course, to the final layout design. But a lot of houses now do have 2 vehicles per household, and even if people didn't have 2 vehicles per household, the thought here was to potentially maybe provide a few visitor parking spaces. Either way, the minimum requirement of 6 will be met during the permitting stage. Can I have slide 7, please? I would like to take a few moments just to point out the benefits as an outcome of the proposed rezoning and future development this site will have. So this development will allow for more rental units within the Middle Sackville community. The development proposes to reuse the existing second driveway on the subject site. The proposal includes maintaining the existing single-family home as well as the existing R6 zone on that lot. The development will be tucked into the back of the site, and the proposal proposes to develop a 4-unit, 2-story town-style built form multiple unit dwelling building as opposed to just a single building containing 4 units, which makes it so that this proposal fits in more with the surrounding neighborhood. Next slide, please. So just to wrap up here, our current application is to rezone a portion of that newly created lot there at 1633 Sackville Drive from R6 to R4. Our current application maintains that existing single-family dwelling on the property. And the intention for the rezoning application is to provide a 4-unit, 2-story rental units to the Middle Sackville area. We feel this is a very modest proposal that fits in with the character of the neighborhood. And next slide, please, last slide. So that brings me to the end of my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions the council may have. And I'd like to say thank you to Brittany for all her hard work through this and all the virtual consultation that we've done. And thank you for having me here.
And thank you for your presentation, Jess. So it's over to the council for any questions of clarification. Councillor Daigle-Gammon.
Mr. Chair, on the presentation, the one driveway in, so is there only one entrance, the same entrance and exit for the units?
Do you mean for the existing single family home as well?
Yes. Maybe.
So right now, if you look at, I guess my slide 2, which shows both lots, the existing single family home as well as the new lot, there are actually 2 driveways in. So there's one driveway that's being retained on that new lot where the single family home is, and then we're proposing to reuse the second driveway for the 4-unit town style homes.
So for clarification, for the 4-unit townhouses, there's only one way in and one way out.
Yes.
Was there a consideration from the Planning Advisory Committee to see if there could be one entrance and one exit?
There wasn't that we heard of. When
if I may step in here, Councillor Daigle-Gammon, you might be thinking of the next report that's coming to council.
I can just add in, just for your clarification though, back in 2019 when they did the concept subdivision plan to determine the as of right density on the site, a traffic impact statement was completed as part of that concept subdivision plan, which the outcome of that was that 5-unit story total on this lot was not expected to have any significant impact on the levels on the streets and the intersections for Sackville Drive.
Thank you.
And does that address your concerns, Councillor?
Yes, it gives information to my question. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Following along along those lines. So this is going to be a driveway. This isn't going to be a private road. This is going to be whatever 1633 A, B, C, and D Sackville Drive. Is that how the addressing is going to shake down?
I would assume yes. When they were civic addressing, Brittany, I don't know if you could answer that one or not, but I would assume it's all one address and probably with units A, B, C, D.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councillor. That would be, I'm assuming, how the civic addressing department hasn't looked at the application and actually given us, they assign those civic addresses once the permit comes in. But I would think it would be safe to assume that that's how they would maybe look at doing those civic addresses there, and it would just be off of that one access point.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Daigle-Gammon.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'm learning, so I'm going to have more questions, I think.
Sure.
The comment that was made about Halifax Water, saying the capacity was just for the number of units that are recommended here now. Is there a concern around the water table or neighboring issues around wells because of this development?
Hi, Councillor. It's Brittany McLean here. So Halifax Water hasn't given us any kind of concerns that there would be a significant impact on those. What they did give us as comment is that the as of right density there would be the 4 maximum on that site. So that's what the their wastewater management capacity would hold. So the zone technically would permit up to 6, but if they came in, when they come in for permits, Halifax Water would say, no, just the 4 is what's appropriate here. So that's what they would get their permit for, unless who knows in the future if the system was upgraded or something. But yes, they did not make any comment that it would have any other significant impacts.
Okay, thank you. And Councillor Daigle-Gammon, does that address your question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Beautiful, thank you. Are there any other speakers in council? Go ahead, Councillor Lovelace.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to make a comment about the fact that this is the kind of proposal that I really like. You know, a proposal that takes vacant land, puts housing on it for people who need the housing in an area that's serviced, you know, with water, with transit and so on. So I'm just looking at this and thinking, you know, this is a win for the community. It adds housing. But you know, one of the questions that I always have to ask is around accessibility. And, you know, while I understand that we don't have the ability to request the developer, the applicant to put in accessible units, I'm just curious to know whether or not that has been a discussion, knowing how many seniors, you know, are looking for housing, and whether or not this is an opportunity for us to add yet another accessible unit to the mix. Thank you.
I'm happy to answer that. To date, there's been no discussion with the property owner on the layout and design of the 4 units. They have not gotten that far down yet. It was getting this hurdle done first and then moving into the permitting stage and getting the design done. I'm happy, though, to take that comment forward and pass it along to the property owner for consideration, though, drawing the detailed design of the buildings for the permitting stage.
Wonderful. Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Thank you. And is there anything further from council?
No, I'm okay here, Paul, thanks.
Okay, beautiful. Then, as there are no registered speakers for this evening's public hearing, I will ask council for a motion to close the public hearing. And no further speakers can be heard following the motion to close the public hearing.
Move public hearing closed, Tim.
Thank you, Tim. And a seconder, please.
Second.
Pam, great, thank you. And so, what are the wishes of council?
Mr. Chair, if I could put the motion on the floor.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I move that Northwest Community Council adopt the amendment to the land use bylaw for Sackville as set out in attachment A of the staff recommendation report dated August 13th, 2020. I so move.
Second, Council Daigle-Gammon.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. If I may, just quickly, as the councillor for the area, I've not heard of any major concerns with this development. We did get an email from a gentleman concerned about stormwater runoff. I am familiar with his particular issue. He lives probably across the street and up towards Mount Uniacke a ways. So any stormwater would be an issue, but he is working with Halifax Water right now to address his issues. It seems to be more of a culvert issue than stormwater management. So I'm quite comfortable with Halifax Water and the developer in this case working together to ensure that there are no problems with stormwater management. It's been pointed out this is a development that is tucked into the woods. I dare say that people driving by on Sackville Drive won't even know that it's up there. I had an inquiry from neighbors whose backyards back onto where this is going to be built. Their only concern was that this was just the start of what would end up being a major development with hundreds of homes, and they've been assured that that is not the case. This is just, you know, this is just a very small development, so I'm very comfortable moving forward with this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Okay. In that case, would someone like to call for the question? Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you. The motion passes. And we are moving on to item 10.1.2, case 21863, the development agreement at Wilson Lake Drive and Sackville Drive in Middle Sackville. And we have another public hearing. And thank you very much for joining us today for our second virtual public hearing. The order of events for this virtual hearing will be the same as the regular public hearing. We will start with a staff presentation, give the applicant an opportunity to present via telephone, and then normally we would go to the speakers list. As a reminder to all speakers and those watching from home, in order to have signed up as a speaker, the deadline was 4:30 p.m. the business day prior to the hearing, so that would have been Friday afternoon. There is one speaker registered for this public hearing. I have the final list of speakers and will be calling, well, the one speaker in that order. To the speaker, please remain on mute until your name is called. Once called, you can unmute your phone by pressing *6 and you will have 5 minutes to speak. Once you have completed your comment, please re-mute your phone and then leave the meeting by hanging up your phone. These meetings are webcast, so you can view the rest of the proceedings via the link on halifax.ca. So over to the clerk's office. Has any correspondence been received on this case?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we received one piece of correspondence and that has been circulated to the committee.
Great, thank you very much. And now could we have the presentation from staff, please?
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of council. My name is Paul Sampson. I'm with Planning Applications, Urban Applications Division. So case number 21863 is an application for development agreement, and the site is located on Wilson Lake Drive and Sackville Drive, Middle Sackville. Next slide, please. So the applicant is the property owner, Wally Schreich, and the location is the corner of Sackville Drive and Wilson Lake Drive, as shown here. And this is another application for development agreement. Well, in this case, it's a development agreement for a townhouse style multi-unit dwelling. In this case, 7 units. Next slide, please. So the site is located on Sackville Drive, just to the west of the Margison Drive roundabout, as shown here, just to give some, and the site is outlined in red. Next slide, please. The site is about 1.5 acres, and in terms of driveway access, the driveways would be off Wilson Lake Drive, and connections to the sewer and the water lines would be via Sackville Drive. Next slide, please. Okay, this is just an image of the site. It's vacant and it's completely tree covered. And the property owner has owned this property, I believe, for approximately 30 years and is looking to now develop the site. Next slide, please. In terms of the municipal planning strategy policies, the Sackville planning strategy designates the site as urban residential, which allows low, medium, and high density residential uses. In this case, policy UR8 allows for development agreement process for multi-unit dwellings above 6 units. Next slide, please. So policies UR8 and implementation policy 13. They're located. The staff review of those is located in attachment B of the staff report. So these policies allow council to consider the building size and location on the site and the appearance of the building, as well as site features such as landscaping, parking areas, and amenity areas for tenants. Separation distances between adjacent low density development, traffic circulation and driveway locations, entrances and exits. The proximity to community facilities such as schools and recreation, that services are available and capable of supporting the development, and also environmental stormwater controls and just the general maintenance of the development. Next slide, please. So the site is zoned R6 under the land use bylaw. That is a low density residential zone, and that zoning will remain on the site, and if approved, the development agreement would also apply to the site to allow the new proposed building. Next slide, please. So the initial proposal at the public information meeting was for 10 units in 2 buildings on 2 separate lots. So there would be subdivision taking place. And that proposal also showed 10 driveways. And so there were a lot of issues raised with regards to driveways, with regards to how the site would be serviced, and how subdivision could take place. And some of the issues were that if subdivision took place, then there would have to be new services constructed at least partway up Wilson Lake Drive, which is quite expensive. So next slide, please. So we looked at, after the PIM, we looked at what kind of options were available for the site, and it was quite limited. So we came up with essentially only 2 options. One was to rezone to R4 to allow for a building up to 6 units. And the other option was development agreement process for a residential building greater than 6 units. So in this case, 7 units was deemed to be the maximum number of units that the site could take based on the sewer capacity. So this was based on feedback again from Halifax Water that was mentioned in the last public hearing. So 7 lots, the only 7 units, sorry, would be through the development agreement process under policy UR8. Next slide, please. Okay, so the current proposal is it's a 7-unit townhouse style residential building. 2 driveways are proposed. Those driveways are proposed as double driveways, so enter and exit. And the proposal allows for large setbacks and for landscaped areas for tenants, and also allows for tree retention along the side and rear property lines. Next slide, please. And so the proposed units are at 1 story. There is allowance in the draft development agreement, which is attachment A of the staff report, for the buildings to be up to 2 stories. And that's just to be in keeping with the community character. The proposed materials include brick and vinyl siding and asphalt shingles. But we did build in flexibility to allow different materials and different building design. But what you see here is what is proposed at this point. Next slide, please. So under the planning strategy, these are some of the issues that the planning strategy addresses, and some of these issues were highlighted in the discussion section of the staff report. So in terms of land use compatibility, the building size and setbacks and type of materials are in keeping with the neighborhood. The site where it's located, right on Sackville Drive, It's adjacent to residential uses on Wilson Lake Drive, but also it's adjacent to commercial on Sackville Drive across the street. So it is kind of in an area of a bit of mixed uses. We feel that the proposal is appropriate for the site. In terms of landscaping and amenity areas, as I mentioned, there are amenity areas for residents proposed. Trees to be retained along the rear and side property lines. And one of the side property lines, of course, is Sackville Drive, and there is setbacks that are required by Nova Scotia Transportation Department as well. So the idea was to retain some trees because that is a busy street, and that would benefit residents as well as the neighborhood. Next slide, please. In terms of traffic and driveways, so instead of 10 driveways as was originally proposed, we're now see two driveways for access all of the 7 units. These driveways will meet the streets bylaw, and there's no impact on the street network expected. In terms of parking, there's going to be at least 1 space per unit and 1 mobility disabled space, as well as bicycle parking facilities in the building. Next slide, please. So a public information meeting was held some time ago. It was about a year and a half ago. There were 12 attendees. In terms of other public engagement, we had information on the website. So there were 89 views of the web page. In terms of feedback, this is feedback on the initial proposal. There were concerns about traffic and on both Wilson Lake Drive and Sackville Drive. There's concerns with the number of driveways, as I mentioned. Whether the units would be rental versus owner occupied. Of course, that's something that HRM doesn't control. In this current proposal, the units could be rental or they could be a condominium arrangement. So other issues were environmental and stormwater concerns and the appearance of the buildings. Next slide, please. So the Planning Advisory Committee recommended that the revised proposal, 7 units, proceed with the consideration to the driveways, that the first driveway be an enter-only driveway and that the second driveway be exit-only. So it is possible for council to include requirements in the development agreement. Currently, the draft development agreement attached to the staff report does not have further restrictions placed, and that was based on feedback from our development engineer. They felt that the driveways that were proposed as 2-way driveways would meet the bylaw, the streets bylaw, and that there would be no reason necessarily to place additional restrictions. At the same time, our development engineer said that there's no reason why council couldn't include the requirement for 1-way driveways right in and right out in the agreement. So that's something that we could put in the agreement if council so wishes. So next slide, please. So staff are recommending that the proposal meets the intent of the MPS and that Community Council approve the proposed development agreement in Attachment A as is. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. And I'd like to reach out to Council and see if there are any questions for clarification. Councillor Blackburn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and not sure if Paul, you can answer these questions, but I'm just wondering where we are with plans for traffic lights at this intersection of Wilson Lake and Sackville Drive. That was something that was discussed quite extensively during the public information meeting, and it is certainly something that was brought up during the Northwest Planning Advisory Committee. I'm just wondering if we know or have an update on plans for lights at this intersection?
Mr. Chair, I do not have an update on that, but what I can tell you is the proposal that you see tonight on this site would not warrant that extra step. That would warrant a change. But like I said, I don't have an answer in terms of whether like planned or not.
Okay, and I'm guessing that you probably wouldn't know either the latest on reestablishing the bike lane and the landscaping across the street from where this is proposed. During the construction of the gas station, just to sort of fill the others in, during the construction of the gas station that's directly across the street from Wilson Lake Drive, a good chunk of bike lane and landscaping were torn up in order to accommodate a turning lane. The owner of that property still has not put that back in place and reestablished the bike lane and landscaping. And last I heard from, I guess it would have been Thea, I think that was something that is under discussion with the landowner. So it's just a couple of loose ends that I thought maybe should be tied up before we move forward on this. But no, appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Are there any further questions of clarification? Okay, thank you. In that case, I would like to open the public hearing, and I invite the applicant to address council, and you are allowed 10 minutes to address council. Mr. I believe it's Dreech.
Mr. Chair, my understanding is Mr. Drage is on the telephone. He wasn't planning. He's available for questions if there are any. I just hopefully he is there. Thanks.
Okay.
I'm here.
Beautiful. Thank you. And so over to council. I'm wondering if there are any questions of clarification from Mr. Drage. And I don't see any. I do have one question, if I may, and that is one of the pieces of correspondence that we received inquired about the effect of blasting. And I'm just wondering if any of the proposals that have been considered or are currently being considered would involve any degree of blasting, and wondering about the effects of that.
Hello?
I'm sorry, I'm having a difficult time hearing you. Did you say no?
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, this is Lonnie. Can you hear me?
I'm okay. I can hear you better now. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. What was the question? Sorry, I missed the question.
The question is one of the concerns that I've seen raised about this related to blasting. And I'm wondering if any of the designs that you are currently considering involve any blasting at all.
Blasting? I don't think so. There is no. I don't see it. There's no rocks in there, or it's just just a regular. I mean, it's not. I didn't see any. Yeah, no rocks to be blasted.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And at this point, I would like to review the rules for public hearings. And those members of the public who have registered with the clerk's office on this matter will be given 5 minutes to address the topic. When called to speak, you will be asked to begin by stating your name and the name of the community in which you reside for the record. Please keep your comments respectful, on topic, and directed to the chair. And at this point, the one person who has registered to speak is Melissa Boland. And Melissa, if you're on the phone, please go ahead.
Hi, Mr. Chair. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, perfect. As you say, my name is Melissa Boland. I live in Middle Sackville in the community of Berry Hill.
Okay.
I've been a resident here for, sorry.
Go ahead.
I've been a resident here for about 5 years, and I've seen, in those 5 years, I've seen a steady line of development both at Sackville Drive and further into the subdivision. Of particular concern to me is the volume of traffic at the intersections along Sackville Drive. In my experience, the bike lanes on Sackville Drive have been unsafe when I've been walking in them. I've seen, as Lisa shared, I've seen developers' promises fall off the radar or fail to live up to their end of the bargain to keep bike lanes and so on moving. And the turning lanes across from this proposed site are barely wide enough for if there's 3 trucks in those lanes. It's pretty tight there. It's pretty dangerous to make a left turn out of either Wilson Lake or the entrance to the plaza at that location. Sorry.
I'm sorry, I'm going to ask the clerk to mute other people on the call so that we can hear Ms. Boland.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do respect the volume of changes that have been taken in with this development. It's very clear that the concerns of the community have been heard at the public hearings, and I just wanted to ask a few more questions. Well, I recognize that the where it's only a few townhouses, that's like a drop in the bucket for this subdivision. I do know that even during COVID, with traffic down as much as it is, Sackville Drive gets congested just if a bus is trying to move away from the bus stop near Wilson Lake Road. And I'm wondering what, and it ends up stalling traffic on the roundabouts and up onto Murchison, again, even during COVID. So I'm just wondering, from a city perspective, what is anticipated to be done to deal with the overall congestion in the community. And I really like the recommendation that the other committee made to have the driveway uses, that one be an in and one be an exit. One concern that I do have, Mr. Chair, is even at that, those the plazas there's a strict no left turning off of Sackville Drive on the 3rd exit there. And people are constantly turning left off of Sackville Drive there. So I'm just wondering who's going to police the driveways at this location. Another question that I have is, if this does turn out to be either if each townhouse is owned by an individual family or it's a condo, how long will the 20 feet easement and tree retention, tree retention be maintained? If it is something that, if all of the units are to be rentals, then I'm assuming that the landlord would be taking care of maintaining the amenity spaces. If it's not going to be a rental space, I'm wondering who maintains the amenity spaces within the proposed development, just from the perspective of being neighbors. And not that I let dandelions grow on my lawn all the time, but just from like making sure that it's not growing up too badly, and what kind of businesses are allowed.
Right. If I can interrupt for a second, you've got about 30 seconds left.
Sure, that was my last question. I read in the description that there's going to be some allowance for businesses, and I was just curious if there was any environmental impact. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Thank you very much, Ms. Boland. And so we have some questions, and I'm wondering if staff or the developer would be able to respond to those questions.
Mr. Chair, I'll try to cover a few of them. So with regards to the driveways, currently the development agreement that's included in the staff report does not limit the driveways to right in, right out, or one-way driveways. But as mentioned, council has that ability to request that be put into the development agreement as a condition. In terms of how the one-way driveways could be enforced, that itself is difficult, other than putting signage. Typically signage would be put to make it clear that it's the driveways are one way, but the enforcement of that is difficult to do. The other aspect of enforcement, though, in terms of maintenance of the grounds, that's something that staff can enforce, and that is typically something that's written in all development agreements, that the owner has to upkeep and maintain the buildings and the grounds, the site, all aspects of the site. And yeah, so essentially that can be enforced by our development officer. And that includes the tree retention aspects as well. If trees are removed, trees can be required to be put back or replaced. In terms of rental versus ownership, again, I mentioned there's the HRM cannot control that, but there are options for either rental or ownership. And in terms of the overall traffic, all I can tell you with regards to the site and this proposal is that our development engineer looked at this and indicated that this proposal would have no impact on the street network. But if there are street network issues currently, that's something that our traffic department would have to look at. So I can't respond to that aspect of it, only to this development proposal itself. I think that's all I have, Mr. Chair, for now.
Oh, okay, and that covers the questions that I made note of as well. Thank you very much, Paul. Can I please have a motion to close the public hearing? And just a reminder that no further speakers can be heard following the motion to close. Oh, sorry, Councillor Lovelace, I didn't see your name in the chat, but you were waving, so go ahead.
No problem at all. I was not chatting. I was listening. But I do have a question because, it's just, I'm just looking at the drawings and I realized that the drawings do not include the location of the driveway across the street. And so as I'm looking at where these two driveways would come in, we have a Canada Post box kind of in the middle of both of those driveways. But then across the street, we also have another driveway from a residential home. So I'm just trying to figure out and just get my bearings as far as where those two driveways with the loop, I guess you could say, actually rest within the location of the Canada Post boxes and the driveway that's opposite the road on Wilson Drive. Is that clear? Did I make myself clear in that question?
You did to me, Paul Sampson.
Paul.
Sorry, Mr. Chair. I can't tell you exactly where, in relation to the driveway across the street, I can't tell you exactly where that would be. And any driveway locations would be looked at in more detail at the permitting stage, and they would be checked for a number of things. The driveway location in relation to other driveways, also in relation to the mailboxes. But also in terms of the stopping site distance. And our engineer has looked at this proposal and basically had no concerns. So she felt that all of our requirements could be met. And what the check on that is really at the permitting stage. So they would check the stopping site distance, for example, to make sure there's enough sighting. I know that the road in that location is fairly flat. So there wouldn't be any issues with regards to slope. It's more, I guess, that the check would be more for the curvature of the road and making sure. Yeah.
Yes, that's
So
why I'm raising it. Yeah, thank you.
So it would be checked at the permitting stage in detail. Yeah.
Okay, well, that's good to hear, because of course, in the drawings, you can't really tell what's happening on the other side of the street. But as noted, coming out of Wilson Lake and trying to make a left turn, that's difficult with the commercial traffic coming in. That, I'm on that road quite often, and that area can be quite hectic. As I'm sure Councillor Blackburn has heard lots about that. And so just thinking about the opportunities to alleviate some of those stresses and not creating opportunities for potential injury or accidents on there. And so the Canada Post boxes, I assume they're just going to be in the middle. They're somewhere between those two driveways. But I would say that further, obviously, away from that intersection, the better. For vehicles to the intersection, meaning Sackville Drive. Anyway, thank you. That was just my point. I appreciate it.
And just one more thing, Mr. Chair, with regards to that last. Nova Scotia Transportation Department owns Sackville Drive, so they also have a say in how far back the driveway can be located, and they want any driveway to be located at least 30 meters back. So there's that would also be checked at the permitting stage as well.
Thank you so much.
Okay. Okay, thank you. At this point, even if we do have other councillors who would like to ask a question, I would like to close the public hearing. So could I have a motion to close the public hearing, please? Councillor Outfit, and a seconder, please.
Seconded, Lovelace.
Thank you. And all in favor of closing the public hearing?
Aye.
Great, thank you. And at this point, are there any further questions from council? Okay, thank you. And so what are the wishes of council?
Mr. Chair, if I could, I would like to put, and hopefully our lawyer is with us to help walk me through this. I'd like to put forward an amended motion.
There is no motion on the floor?
Oh, I guess when I say amended compared to what is written before us. I would like to move that Northwest Community Council amend the proposed development agreement to include an entrance-only and exit-only driveway for this development, and approve it, which shall be substantially of the same form as set out in Attachment A of the staff recommendation report dated September 30th, 2020, and 2, require the agreement be signed by the property owner within 240 days or any extension thereof granted by council on request of the property owner from the date of final approval by council and any other bodies as necessary, including applicable appeal periods, whichever is later. Otherwise, this approval will be void and obligations arising hereunder shall be at an end. I so move.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that?
I'll second that. Thank you.
Councillor Lovelace, thank you. Over to our lawyer. Are we allowed to put an amended motion directly on the floor?
The amended motion can go on the floor, but as the development agreement is a negotiated process, it would be necessary for the developer to confirm that they would accept that amendment, and then we could go forward with it.
Okay. Do I need to reword what I've just moved then, or is that?
I don't think so. I'm wondering if staff can comment on whether there's been discussions with the developer, or the developer can weigh in as to whether they would be agreeable to that minor amendment to the DA.
Mr. Chair, I do have one comment or question, if I can.
Sure.
I just wanted to clarify that the recommendation of Northwest Planning Advisory Committee was to make the first driveway off Wilson Lake Drive an entrance only, and the second driveway being exit only. So I just wanted to clarify that was the PAC recommendation. So is that the same wording we have for this recommendation, or?
It doesn't have to, if I may, it doesn't have to be the same wording, and perhaps we may want to leave that to the development officer to make a consideration as to which of those two driveways would best serve the purpose. I just make that comment because that S-turn is located near the second driveway, and you would actually have the traffic moving from that second driveway closest to the S-turn, making a left-hand turn versus making a right-hand turn in. So there may be some considerations for that council may want to leave open as the matters progress and the approvals come through. That's just my thought on that.
Thank you. Yes, that's sort of what I had in mind as well, because that the farthest edge of this development does sort of start at where that S curve is, and that is certainly the concern that Northwest Planning Advisory. So at the time I sat at Northwest PAC, so heard much of the debate surrounding the driveways and saw how they came to this recommendation. For me, the thing is, when it comes to development, it's got to be the right density at the right time and the right location. And with this one, we've got two out of the three boxes checked. I'm just really, the location is one that does concern me. That said, this development that is before us tonight is miles ahead of what was proposed with the individual driveways. I think having the entrance only and the exit only driveways certainly goes a long way to mitigating issues, getting in and out of that area. Now, mind you, getting in and out of Wilson Lake Drive, that is another beast altogether that I continue to tackle with our traffic staff. There is another larger development that will be going in off of Wilson Lake Drive at a later date. I believe it's still under consideration. So, that is definitely something that is on the radar and that we continue to push. But I think in the meantime, I do support this with the enter only and the exit only driveways. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Ms. Holm.
Good evening, members of council. Sorry about that. I'm having a bit of technical difficulties with my Teams at the moment, so the chat was the only way to raise my hand there. I do have one question for council relative to the proposed amendment on the floor. I believe the text amendment would be quite straightforward to insert into the agreement. My question would be, would this item would council want it to also fall under the non-substantive clauses? So at the end of a development agreement, we often are quite explicit about what items may return to council for a resolution only, being non-substantive in nature, versus those items that are substantive in nature and would then need to come back to council for a full hearing. So if council wished to have the right in, right out inserted into the agreement, we could do that. My question is, would you also, or would you not, like to have that item listed as a non-substantive matter that the developer could then, if there was an issue down the road, a technical issue or just a matter of their wish, to come back to council and say, to alter or change that requirement? So it really comes down to a matter of, if it was non-substantive, it could come back to council for a resolution and not a public hearing. If it was substantive, therefore not listed in that section 6.1 of the development agreement, it would have to come back to council in a full hearing, much the same way that this evening has taken place.
If I may, would there be a third option that it could be at this point non-substantive, and then if it comes back and there is some indication that it has become substantive, could we then request a public hearing?
Typically, it would be listed in the agreement. I guess the decision would be easily made this evening to say whether council wishes that to come back as substantive or non-substantive, being for a full hearing or just a resolution of council. It would be helpful to have the agreement outline that, or at least to have council give staff that direction this evening, as we would be making that insertion into the agreement.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So council, what is your wish as far as the amendment? Is it substantive or not substantive?
Paul, or sorry, just a quick question. So first of all, I think it should be substantive because it's substantive, it's substantial enough or substantive enough that Lisa wants this added as an amendment, first of all.
Yeah.
And of course, PAC thought it was significant. But I guess the other thing, and maybe I'm jumping ahead of you here, Chair, that we still haven't had confirmation from the developer, the applicant, I should say, the developer, whether they're even going to entertain this or not. So I think we're going to need that as well.
Agreed.
Over to the clerk then, would we be able to get that confirmation during this meeting? I believe.
Mr. Chair, the applicant's still on the phone,
Okay,
so you can ask him.
okay, and have you muted the applicant? We do have a closed public hearing at this point. So I'm not sure what the process would be around that. Would we have to reopen the public hearing, or can we just get that response?
I'm not 100% sure of that. That would have to be up to Roxanne.
I don't think it's necessary to reopen the public hearing. We're just asking for input from the developer with respect to an amendment that was suggested by council as to whether they would be amenable to that.
Okay.
Yeah, I've seen that happen before.
Okay, over to the developer then, Mr. Dridge. Would you be willing to consider having one-way driveway access, one driveway in and one driveway out, not specifying which driveway is which?
Yeah, hi, it's me again.
Hello.
Hi, so you're proposing that we do the driveways, one entrance and one exit, right?
Exactly.
Okay, I don't mind that. I'll go.
Wonderful. Thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, no problem.
Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the response.
He said wonderful. Or sorry, he said he was willing to consider that. I said wonderful.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Does that address the concerns of council?
That's for me. Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Lovelace.
Yes, I agree that it should be substantial. I agree that this is the right direction, and I'm pleased to move forward with this. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. So we have a motion on the floor for the proposed development agreement with the amendment that the driveway is one way in and one way out, and it is of substantially the same form as the rest of the motion that we have in the text. Are there any further questions, or is there any further discussion on the motion?
Call for the question.
Okay, question has been called. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Wonderful. The motion passes. Thank you very much. So at this point, and thank you to the developer and to staff, and thank you to Ms. Boland for coming forward for the public presentation. I really appreciate when we do get to hear from the public. We do our job better when we know what those who we represent would like to see happen. So thank you very much for your input. We're moving on now to 10.2, the variance appeal hearings, and there are none. Correspondence, I believe we have, we addressed this for these particular applications, but is there any more broad correspondence? Over to the clerk.
Hi, Mr. Chair. No, the only correspondence we received were the items that were circulated for 10.1.2 and 10.1.1.
Okay, thank you. And are there any petitions?
Hello.
Hello, Mr. Drew.
Sorry.
Thank you. That sounded like Mr. Dreech again.
Yeah.
Okay.
There were no petitions from the clerk's office.
Okay, thank you. And do the councillors have any petitions? Doesn't seem so. Okay. There are no presentations. There are no information items brought forward. Staff reports, there are none. Reports from members of Northwest Community Council, there are none. There are no motions. We do have minutes from the December 14th, 2020 meeting. And so we can have the motion in public, or we can move to in camera if if council would like.
Mr. Chair, I'll test council's appetite here to move the in-camera minutes in public session. Move that Northwest Community Council approve the in-camera minutes of December 14th, 2020 as circulated.
Second, Tim.
Okay, second by Councillor Lovelace.
Yeah.
Are there any errors or omissions? And if there are, we would need to move in camera.
No.
Thank you. So call for the question. All those in favor?
I'll still vote for it.
All opposed? Or any opposed? Thank you. That passes. There are no added items. Are there any notices of motion? Okay. Hearing none. The date of the next meeting is February 8th, 2021. And can I have a motion for adjournment, please?
I so move.
From Councillor Lovelace. Thank you very much. And we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right.
Good night, all.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a good
Take care.
night.
Good night.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.